What's up, y'all? It's your boy Steph, back with another reaction. This time we have Creepypasta, Something is Wrong, Creepypasta, uploaded July 10th, 2015. So it's almost 4 years old. Down in the description of the video, it says, warning, this one is disturbing. So even though it's more of a dated video, seeing that, especially the title of it, Something is Wrong, it automatically drew me in. And I know Creepypasta is real talented. You know, I put him on my top 5 Creepypasta content creators list. So, without further ado, guys, we just gonna jump right into this one. Down in the description will be a link to Creepypasta's channel along with the link to this original video so you guys could go see it for yourselves without my commentary. Without further ado, let's get into it.
It had been a while since I visited my cousins. Believe it or not, it had been 5 years since I saw any of their faces.
Damn.
The last time I saw them, I was 8 years old and had not yet learned that the world had no consequences.
Yeah.
I skipped gaily around their 2-story ramshackle house joyously, singing my favorite songs and playing with the 6-year-old twins. This playtime, however, was constantly tainted by my Aunt Clarissa. My Aunt Clarissa was always that one person with which everything had to be just right.
A perfectionist.
Perfect, or as close to perfect as possible.
Yeah.
Whenever I would try play tag, hide and seek, or anything of the sort really, she would be hovering over us, her dark grey eyes flashing. She would always say, "Now Jared, don't you ever play too rough with Simon or Eloise. If anything were to happen to them, I'd wear you out." Aunt Clarissa always used to scare me as a child.
I whooped that
With a
ass.
sharp chin and stormy eyes. She reminded me of a witch. I did not dare do anything she wouldn't approve of with Simon or Eloise, even when she wasn't around, because I knew that she would stay true to her word and beat me black and blue if I were to ever harm either of them. Her precious little twins had to be perfect and untouched. We used to visit her all the time back at my old house. We only lived about 30 minutes away from each other. Then my dad got a job offer up in Michigan, and it was a long time before I ever stepped foot in Illinois. I do remember feeling happy, at the very least, for my Aunt Clarissa as we left, despite my disliking her. She was about to have another child, and she was joyful as could be. Her eyes weren't as stormy as they usually were the last time that we went to visit them to say goodbye, and she seemed as content and relaxed as ever, with the growing bulge in her stomach. 3 was the perfect number. 3 perfect children, in a wonderful family. This was all Aunt Clarissa had ever wanted. We all moved to Detroit, and 8 months later, the big news came. Aunt Clarissa had had a baby. She sent us a letter with several exclamation points telling us how happy she was for her newborn child, who she named Mallory. Even now, when I'm 17 years old, I still remember thinking that it was odd she had not sent a photograph of her infant child. The years whisked by like sand and wind, and the more time went by, the less contact we had with our cousins, Aunt Clarissa and my Uncle Wayne. Then, finally, we were invited over to her house for the holidays. My mother, who missed her older sister dreadfully, readily agreed to visit, and my father, seeing how eager my mother was, complied with her wishes. After a 2-day car trip,
That would be best.
we finally got to the familiar old residence of my aunt, uncle, and their 3 children. We all approached the steps, laughing and talking to each other before reaching the door and knocking. A full minute later, we were still standing there, fidgeting and stealing glances at each other. The door suddenly opened about a foot. The face of an 11-year-old boy appeared at the door. His white blonde hair hung down over his baggy green eyes, which flitted around at us, taking in our every detail. His jaw finally quivered slightly before he said to us, "Come in, please. It's so nice to see you all." After 5 years, Simon had definitely changed. He was more solemn, as if he had been consistently bullied and expected contempt from everyone.
Probably has.
My mother wasted no time, smiling and gushing. "Why, Simon, come here and give me a hug." Simon allowed himself to be hugged before taking us all inside,
Allowed.
where we were
Fucking
greeted by Aunt Clarissa. She smiled, saying, "It's so nice to see you all again," before spreading her arms and coming in to give us all hugs. She commented on how much I had grown up and asked me if I had taken care of my parents. I smiled uneasily and replied that I had done the best I could. I looked hard at Aunt Clarissa, taking in how she had changed.
How so?
She really had not changed very much.
Oh.
There were grey streaks in her otherwise blonde hair, but that appeared to be it. I asked where her Uncle Wayne was, and she responded that he was on a business trip and wouldn't be back in some time. She led us into the dining room, where Mallory and Eloise had already sat down. My mother crooned over Mallory and introduced herself while Dad commented on how much Eloise has changed. Mallory didn't look at all like the rest of the family. Her hair was a dirty blonde, and her eyes were not green or grey, but instead a light blue. I did not really talk to her, but instead focused on Eloise, who had grown much older and prettier than I had last seen her. She barely remembered me, but I was able to make small talk with her. I noticed she had grown to be wary and suspicious of others, as if someone might try to stab her in the back. The only members of the family that seemed normal were Aunt Clarissa and Mallory. Mallory was happily eating away at steamed carrots, and Aunt Clarissa was sat on a chair with a pleased look on her face, as if proud of her perfect children. There was definitely tension in the air, as if there had recently been a fight between Aunt Clarissa and her kids.
Something is wrong.
I decided that I would ask Eloise about it after dinner. I met up with her in the living room and sat down. She was engrossed in a teenage magazine I had never heard of, but looked up sharply as soon as the question was out of my mouth. "Eloise, is there anything wrong in this house?" Her sea-green eyes flitted to 2 different places, somewhere behind me, before meeting my own. I made a mental note of this. "There's nothing wrong here. Why would you say that?"
Yeah, there is.
She answered, forcing a smile onto her face.
Right, it didn't sound genuine.
I shook my head. "Never mind. I thought Simon was acting unusual." I saw a split second of relief cross her face before she managed to hide it. "It's nothing. Don't worry about him. He gets bullied sometimes by older kids." I nodded and continued to talk to Eloise, but my mind was elsewhere. I swiftly concluded our conversation and got up. Turning around as I did so, I quickly surveyed the living room, looking for places Eloise had been glancing at. Those 2 places were the coat closet and the stairwell. I knew that something was wrong with this family inside this house. It was something that kept eluding me that I couldn't quite put my finger on. It was definitely frustrating. I decided that I would find out tonight, after everyone had gone to bed. I was to be sharing a room with Simon, and Mom and Dad would be taking the spare room upstairs. I did my best to act normal and socialize with everyone, given the unsettling atmosphere of the house.
Watch your back.
My parents did not appear to notice anything. They were oblivious to how strange our cousins were acting.
Of course.
I think my mum was glad to finally be talking to her sister after 5 years of not seeing each other. And my dad just seemed to be happy for my mother.
Yeah.
Finally, it was time to go to bed. We all brushed our teeth and changed into our pajamas. Simon had allowed me to use his bed, and he plopped down on the floor. The moonlight streaming in through the window illuminated his face. I relaxed my breathing, pretended to fall asleep, while watching Simon, waiting for him to nod off. But he did not.
Leave one eye open.
I stared at him for hours as he lay there on the ground, his eyes never closing. Every muscle in his body was pulled taut, as if he were expecting someone to break into the room and attack him. At 1 a.m, his breathing relaxed, and he became limp. I crept out of the room and headed for the coat closet, a small flashlight in hand that I'd stolen from Simon's drawer. I tiptoed silently over the hardwood floor, wincing every time it creaked. I finally made it to the coat closet and opened the door. Turning on the flashlight, I stepped inside. It looked like a regular coat closet. Nothing special or extraordinary about it.
Looks can be deceiving.
I began rummaging around, checking the coat pockets and even Aunt Clarissa's purse. But all I came across was a Swiss Army knife in Simon's pocket and some scented germ eggs in Eloise's jeans jacket, but nothing more. I began to search in the more unusual places, checking in dark corners and even in the shoe rack, but I didn't find anything of interest. I started looking underneath the baskets in which various gloves and hats were kept on a shelf above the coat rack. To my surprise, a newspaper article fluttered down to the floor. I bent over and picked it up. The article read, "Female infant stolen from orphanage." My curiosity increased. Why would Aunt Clarissa have something like this in her coat closet? I took the article into my back pocket and went on to the second thing I had seen Eloise looking at. The stairs. I remembered when I was little, Simon and Eloise had a hide-and-seek place that beat me every time. They would simply hide in the cupboard underneath the stairs. Every time I passed the cupboard, I would stop, not wanting to go inside to the darkness of the cupboard where unspeakable monsters surely awaited me. I would search every nook and cranny of the house, hoping there would be somewhere else before eventually giving up, even though I really knew where my cousins were. Using that method, they'd beat me time and time again until I eventually tired of hide-and-seek and proclaimed that we should play tag instead. They had rearranged the furniture so the couch now blocked the cupboard underneath the stairs, but I knew for sure it was still there. I looked down on the ground and noticed something strange. There were scuff marks on the ground, as if the couch had been pulled away from the stairs often. I knew that whatever was under those stairs was the answer to why everyone in the house was so tense, and I was eager to find out the secret.
Don't get caught.
I pushed the couch away from the staircase and stepped over the cupboard beneath the stairs. To my surprise, the cupboard was secured with a thick padlock.
Ew.
I went back to the coat closet and retrieved Simon's small knife. I inserted the thin blade into the handle and jiggled it around until the lock clicked open. My heart began to pound feverishly in my chest as I unhooked the padlock and swung the small door open.
It's like Cooper.
I shone the flashlight in the dark area beneath the stairs. My flashlight passed over a chain dangling from the low ceiling of the right-hand end of the small space provided by the cupboard, and I moved my flashlight down to discover a human hand in a manacle. A shocked little gasp escaped my throat, and my blood ran cold.
I bet.
I reached up and flicked the switch to the small light bulb dangling from the ceiling. Before me, a girl, no less than 9 years old, was hanging from the manacles on the ceiling, clad in nothing but a pair of dirty undershorts. Her head lolled to one side, a rag was stuffed in her mouth, and her ankles was tied in thick rope.
Okay. I was gonna go this whole video without pausing it, But there is something I do need to say. Based upon the information that I've been told so far, you're sneaking around her house, looking in the closets and the dark corners, and now you're under the stairwell. I feel like, because there's still a whole good 3 minutes left of this story before Creepypasta does his outro and all that. Do not get caught. Because since there's so much time left and you just made this discovery, I feel like one of the kids is going to catch you. I don't think they're going to do anything to you. Worst case scenario is if your aunt catches you. If your aunt catches you, ooh boy, you done fucked up now. Oh, you done fucked up. Don't get caught.
Her wrists and skin around her feet were red and sore from being bound. And I could tell from the length of her face and how small her eyes were that she suffered from Down syndrome. Her skin was seemingly pulled over her bones and her ribs stuck out. For a horrible moment, I thought that she was dead. But then her head raised and a horrible moaning escaped her throat through the rag in her mouth. Looking to the other side of the cupboard, revulsion welled up in the pit of my stomach.
Keep her quiet.
Sprawled out in the corner was the half-eaten corpse of my uncle.
What the fuck?
His stomach had been ripped open and his innards were pulled all over the floor. The skin on his face had been peeled away by greedy hands to reveal the white skull.
Oh.
I looked back at the girl and noticed for the first time that her hands and face were stained with gore. I couldn't take it. I kneeled over and threw up before catching my balance on the doorframe and trembling. I realized what had happened in this house. Aunt Clarissa, the perfectionist she was, would never have allowed her child to have Down syndrome. So she stole a new baby from a nearby orphanage. She stole the child I knew to be Mallory. But Aunt Clarissa didn't have the heart to kill her own child, even if the baby was mad. So she kept the child hidden away under the stairs whilst being with her perfect family. However, my uncle had opposed my Aunt Clarissa, so she had gotten rid of him and used him to feed a hungry little secret under the stairs. I had to do something.
Yeah.
I knew that I should immediately call the police.
Hell yeah.
I ran upstairs and grabbed the handset that was sitting on the nearby table. I quickly punched in the numbers 911, only to look down and discover the phone lines had been cut.
See?
Aunt Clarissa kept her family under closed tabs. Simon and Eloise's home was also their prison.
Something is wrong.
All of a sudden, I heard a shriek from downstairs. That's when I realized I left the door under the stairs open and the light on.
Oh my god.
I then heard someone running and the front door being slammed shut. I scrambled to my room and used my cell phone to call the police. I later found out that Aunt Clarissa had fled the house when she discovered her secret was out. Thankfully, the girl under the stairs turned out to be okay, but the police never found Aunt Clarissa. Even now, she's probably on the streets, maybe with a new name or face, searching for another perfect child.
Fuck. That was a good story. I like that. I like to just sit down and listen to these creepypastas. That kept my attention the whole time. I guess it's good that once she realized that the jig was up, she screamed and she ran out of the house, never to be seen again. Because I can almost guarantee had she came downstairs or she had came up on the stairwell while you were in there, and she saw that you saw what was in there and had put two and two together about everything that had, you know, transpired, oh, boy, you wouldn't have made it out. I don't know. I don't think she would have screamed and ran off. I think she would have took you out. She can't put you under the stairs with the half-eaten uncle and the little girl that had Down syndrome because you're alive. You actually have the energy to scream and yell for help, and your parents would have heard you, and all of that would have happened. She would have killed you, or she would have took you outside and killed you, but she would have got rid of you some way, shape, or form. You've seen too much. This was a really, really, really good story. I told y'all, even 4 years ago, Creepypasta was still doing his thing. Like I've always told people, I don't care how old a story is, it can still be scary if certain components are put together in a good way. Like, this was creepy from the jump. Like, I don't know, dude. Two things before I end the video. One, the husband in the situation was smart enough to go ahead along with what his wife wanted, because husbands who come up to my job, or husbands that I know personally, they could be like family or family friends, stuff like that. They say, if my wife isn't happy, I'm not happy. So the husband in this story was smart enough to go on with what his wife wanted to do. He knew better. And two, if she was a perfectionist, her twins were perfect. But is it the fact that she had a third child? Let's say her third child didn't have Down syndrome, so she wouldn't have had to steal the baby. Wouldn't that been imperfect? You have twins, and then you have one more. Wouldn't it have been perfect if she would have had triplets? Because then they're all just like, y'all know what I'm saying? Maybe I'm thinking too much into it, but nah. I'm glad everybody made it out okay for the most part. Don't know about the uncle. He became dinner. That little girl with Down syndrome under the stairs was surviving by any means. What did y'all think of the story? Did you like it? Did you love it? Did you think they could have added something? I think this story was perfect. No pun intended. I loved this story, and I loved reacting to it, and I hope you guys loved watching me react to it, because I'm here for you. So as I always say, I love creepypastas, and I will continue to do them, and I will start doing longer creepypastas. I made this a point as a discussion in the Mr. Creeps video that I reacted to. Why I quit the night shift at McDonald's creepypasta. Something like that. Longer creepypastas, I'm always afraid that I'll get like halfway through the story, then things will start to dim down, and it'll start to get boring for me. And if it's boring for me, more than likely it's going to be boring for you guys. But stories like this was almost, this is 17 minutes, so, well, the video was 17 minutes. The story was about like 16 minutes and like 40 or 50 seconds or something like that. But I'm gonna start doing longer creepypastas. You ain't even gotta worry about that. I'm on that. I got y'all. But what do you think of the story? Leave your comments and opinions down below, and any other suggestions you guys have, please feel free to leave it down below. Always looking for new material. Creepypasta, I fucks with you. Like I said, I love that title. So that's all I got for y'all in this video. If you like my reaction, like the video, comment on the video, and share the video. And if you really liked it, subscribe to my channel. It really helps me out a lot. And tap that bell icon so you will be notified every time I drop new content, which I do on a weekly basis. That is all I got for y'all this time around. Your boy Steph is out.